Okay, hey everybody, we are at the midway mark. Most of you are doing amazing work. Some of you are really behind. Catch up. I'll try to help you. It's not one of those things that you really can just bullet through. This course wasn't designed to be like that. Is it possible? I guess so. But what we're trying to do, if you really are serious about becoming a strategic writer in any capacity, when you graduate, which is all communications writing, by the way. As you see, we're doing all sorts of different things. Some are more creative than others. What's coming up? We've got podcasts on the horizon, and I know that many of you are interested in that. We have print ads on the horizon. We've got business correspondence coming up. So, how to communicate really with some of your prospective job opportunities. So getting a resume together, that kind of thing. We're getting close to the deadline where you need to have your LinkedIn profile up and running and connect with me. So I can just give you some feedback on how you are representing yourself in this world. Next we're moving into the final project. And I just want to give you an overview on what it is, because some of it will feel redundant. Wait a minute, we have to do another strategic message planner? Didn't we just do that? Yeah, you did. What you just completed in week 4, I believe it was the client brief, we'll call it. It's got everything in the kitchen sink, right? So you've got the advertising goal all the way through to the nitty gritty. I've seen these come, and usually they come from the client. Because the client knows their business better than anybody, and they will take not even just an attempt. They know even the key message that they want to get across to the consumer, and sometimes that's handled all internally, usually with a lot of input from their agencies, but they have that master plan. That's what the strategic brief is. When you start to work with agencies and the creatives who start to bring that into the world, right, to put it into some sort of a campaign, we're the ones that take that big beast of a plan, that 6-pager, 6-pager, and we bring it down to the 1-pager. The most important thing that we're focused on is that promise. What's the brand promise? What's the key message? We call these things many different things in our worlds, but you know what you're listening for. What's that single-minded idea that's going to have a very benefit focus? It's going to offer a benefit to our consumer that no one else is selling, that positions us more favorably against, in their consideration versus the competition. So how do you find that? Well, it's a lot of psychology, quite frankly. You really have to understand your consumer. That's why we do market research. You really have to get into their worlds, into their heads, into their thinking to know what motivates them every day of their lives, really, or specifically within your category, like how they navigate your category so you could figure out how to connect with them in the most germane and relevant way. I worked at Ogilvy. They talk about it in your book. So David Ogilvy is famous for his book on Ogilvy on advertising. He said, advertising which promises no benefit to the consumers does not sell, yet the majority of campaigns contain no promise whatsoever. I think now we all are a little bit more formulaic in advertising. We know it should be very benefit focused, and I'm seeing many of you come up with that. So in other words, you want to move beyond your product's attributes and think about, why would I want this as a consumer, right? And start to interrogate your own thinking, and then ask that consumer. So now in your final project, choose a local business, have the target audience be someone like you. It's probably the easiest way to start. You go, well, what do I think and feel? So you can kind of figure out what questions you would have. And then you could ask more broadly. We call it grandmother research, where you're like asking grandma, what do you think of this? But grandmother research is just, it's pretty casual. You're not organizing a research project to get, quantifiable learning that you can project on a broader population. No, you're just getting into some insights. And you do that by talking to people and understanding their worlds. How do they think? How do they feel? What do they react to? What do they like? What do they not like? There's a million just like simple questions. And I say this all the time, guys. My role as a strategic writer, I'm literally called a strategic planner. So a strategic brand planner or a brand planner, you'll find, there's usually one in an agency, and I work on different pieces of business. I work with the clients to get that strategic message plan down, and then I take it, turn it into one pagers, and I work with the creatives to turn it into something inspiring that they're going to go, oh, okay, I get it. I don't get into creative territory. That is not what I'm good at. I protect that turf like it's nobody's business, right? Once I set them on the course, the creative teams, they usually work in teams of 2, where you have a copywriter and an art director, and they go off to create a campaign. As long as they're on point, as long as they're on my message, not up to me to tell you if I like it or not, right? So I kind of steer, and I inspire, and I go, yeah, it's on brief, or it's off brief. If it's off brief, I have a job to do, and it's tough because people get attached to their ideas. So it's tricky in an ideas business, which is why the what's on the piece of paper matters a lot, so that you know exactly where you need to steer your messaging to motivate consumer behavior. So back to David Ogilvy, he says, no, I don't see it in the book. But, we pursue knowledge the way a pig pursues truffles. Okay, think of it. That's the best quote I've ever heard, right? That was our culture when I worked at Ogilvy. That's it. Like, think about when in your pursuit of knowledge, there's a lot of information in the world, but you're digging for the truffles. Truffles are like the very, very expensive mushrooms. Boy, I need to get me a truffles farm, right? But that you need boars. Like there's like truffle hunting boars. They just go out there and they sniff around on the ground, and once they start digging, truffles under there, you could sell them for a lot of money. But anyway, that's the idea. Dig for those nuggets. Dig for those, those gems, that inspiration, that gold. And sometimes you just have to do that by connecting the dots. That's what we do in strategic planning. We connect dots. We get a lot of information, get a lot of detail, and then it's up to us to figure out how to put it together in a way that's inspiring for an audience. So as you move toward your final campaign, that's what you're doing. There's another assignment where you're going to write the strategic message plan, but it doesn't have to be as long. It doesn't have to be as as it could be. You could lay down all the bones. But I want you to really think about what's the situation now. Choose another local client. By the way, if you've already done this, you already have your client, I've already approved it, you already love where you're going, stay on track. You can repurpose it. Go back and look at the feedback I gave you. See if you could punch it up so that I don't regrade you on the same thing that I already took points off, right? So there's some simple things that you can do to get it back to where it needs to be. But find a client, find a local client. And why that's really important is this. If you want to take on Nike, I'll tell you what, I know Nike. That's the problem. The people who've taken on Nike before, they're called Wyden and Kennedy. They're in Seattle. It's an agency in Seattle. They've had the business forever. And they're geniuses. They're brilliant, just inspired. And so, it's going to be really tough for you to come up with some sort of a new, interesting way to think about them because their brand already has a really strong identity. So you want to look at a local business that you have enough of a problem to solve that you can come up with something inspiring. And single-minded and focused for your campaign. You don't need to solve every brand challenge in this project. You're just looking to say, like, what could we say to make people intrigued, to hook them, depends on what your objective is. So you want to come up with a situation that will summarize, your client's history, features, benefits, whatever it is. Summarize the local market, just kind of give that situation so I know what I'm grading. What's the lay of the land? Then you write your strategic message planner. That's going to be due in a month. Actually, not quite even a month. It's going to be due, I have it as November 5th. Then you're going to come up with a print ad. We're about to learn how to do that. Sort of a standard size magazine advertisement. No posters, no flyers. So just a print. Then you're going to come up with a web ad, radio commercial, script that drives traffic to a website so that your call to action, driving traffic means make people go check out www. whatever. So you're driving traffic to a website. Okay. So I'm actually just reading this. This is already posted on weeks 8 and 9 IAP, where it's called Integrated Advertising Project. I'm just reading this to you. So you should have this in front of you. So again, situation analysis, just a one-pager. What's the lay of the land? What am I solving for? The strategic message planner for your client, your local client, with the key message and all of that. So that's going to take some time. A print ad. So once you get that tight, I'm looking at that master brief to say, does your print ad on strategy? Is your radio ad on strategy? The strategy is the strategic message planner. Is it on message? Is it on brand? Or did you go off and do a whole crazy tone that doesn't fit your brand? All these things start to work together, but, the mothership is that strategic message planner. You're going to come up with a script for a 60-second radio ad or a 30-second TV. We didn't talk about TV. It just felt like a lot, but it's in your book. You could certainly look at that. I don't know that I have a specific television assignment, but, it's radio with sketches. And I did put up that example of myself, Nature Made Vitamins. No kidding. Like my creative director, she's like, I think, can you just come tomorrow in your yoga clothes? Because I'm going to have you jump. Whatever. As I was inspiring her, I'm like, no, who we really need to go after. And I was describing myself, not realizing. So she put together a storyboard, which she animated, meaning we had a little studio and we sent it to our animators in the studio and they just put the graphics. You saw me jumping around. Hopefully you saw that video, the best animatic ever made. That was in the week 7. But anyway, so that's an animatic. That's a storyboard. It's just that when we go to put it in testing, it tests better, we know, as communication strategists when it's moving. When people feel like it's closer to the real thing, they like it better versus just looking at comic strip, like just little graphics. They get it better. So, we put our thumb on the scale a little bit so that it's up against when we put it into a rotation. Now you have a history lesson here in terms of, or a lesson on how research gets tested. But so when you don't just show the consumer and they go, I like it, I don't like it. We test it against norms. So we find other similar advertising at a similar stage in its development to test it against. That's what's called norms, normative data. So if I was I might not have a lot of other vitamin commercials, but they'll find in their own database, other vitamin commercials, Centrum, one a day or whatever, and they'll put it up against your ad. Well, if your ad is at a really early stage in sketching and the other one's kind of moving, so it should be apples to apples. It should be animatic to animatic, but the closer you can get yours to being polished looking. Obviously, you also can test a fully produced spot, which we do, but that's not pre-test because you've already created the campaign. You spent a lot of money to put it together. So we do that too. But in the early stages to sell the idea, that's a departure for what I want to tell you. But I just wanted to get it all in there, right? Because I don't get to have you guys in class all the time. All right. So anyway, so you could do a TV commercial. Look at that animatic. We ended up, shooting it. Basically, you cast it. It wouldn't be me in that role. So we tested it. It tested really, really well. It beat the competition. It gave us all green lights to say, go ahead. Research says if you produce the ad the way this is, you're going to, do very well. How did you do the background? Because it was very animated. That actually was an artist we wanted to do a more animated feel. Which was a little confusing, I think, because that's hard to, because it's a different kind of style. So it tested really well because the animatic was pretty close to finished. So we ended up hiring a professional actress to do the same jumping around thing that I was doing. And it was fine. It's just that the client ultimately said it felt off strategy because they wanted their brand to be, we were just coming up with campaign ideas, right? So this was this idea, how do you sell vitamins? How do you sell vitamins? unless I show you the research on why you would take a vitamin, and there's not a lot of research. There's a lot of directional learning, but you can't do that legally to say you might have better heart health. Some studies show stuff. There's all research all the time, and what you don't want to do is get yourself sued. So you have to be very careful. And everything that we do, everything that we produce in professional communications goes through legal. And legal can, nix you at the end. So how do you sell vitamins? You can't just say you're going to feel better. Well, you can. That's kind of soft, right? Sure, you'll feel better. It could be placebo. We don't know. The only way I know my vitamin has done something in my body is that, my pee is really bright yellow. That's not a good consumer-facing message. Ew. Right? How do I know? How do I know those vitamins got in? How do I know I needed them? So how do you tell that consumer? And that campaign that I worked on with a creative team, Glad You Took Your Vitamins, we said, let's talk about the experience of taking your vitamins after the fact. So what would be possible? And then you're in playland, right? Then you're in your imagination, and then we get around legal. Because we're not making claims about vitamins anymore. We're showing people dancing and being vibrant and super healthy and doing yoga. Can you be a good yoga No, I don't know. But you want to see yourself in the benefit, and the end benefit is having just a healthy life and being, having a lot of vitality and having energy and health and da-da-da-da. So we said, let's go, rather than selling vitamins on the front end, and this was the creatives came up with the line, Glad You Took Your Vitamins. It's great because it takes it after the fact. Yeah, I am glad I took my vitamins. Well, prove that it worked. Look at me doing yoga. I'm not proving, I'm just showing, I'm demonstrating, right? So it was a good creative choice, I thought. So we're always working with that. We're working with legal, constantly getting our ideas nixed. Not usually in the strategy phase. It's usually after you've produced something. So you have to be careful, what you can and cannot say. Anyway, so just for you guys, that's just a little insight. So that's it. So you're going to produce radio or TV and a final presentation. So you have to just be very careful what your message is and what you can say or can't say. Don't overpromise. And besides, college students, people your age, have a very high BS meter. And that's because they've been sold to their whole lives. Things in the way we talked to consumers in the 50s, it was like appointment television. You kind of learned about that, like 7 o'clock. This is when that show came on. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have you guys with the advent of the internet, you grew up in that world. And it's constant sell. And as a result, you're a little bit more, not cynical, but aware of, a sales message, right? So it's not like, oh, that's fascinating now that that's on my radar. We didn't have as much on our radar back then, right? So you just want to be shrewd as marketers now, knowing that your audience wants, just give it to me clearly, tell me what the benefit is to me, and then I'll look further or take some action. So that's the whole point of the strategic message plan. I know it's a lot of work to put that together, but that's where you're starting to really get into the consumer mindset. I had one. Can I talk about it really briefly? I don't think the student would mind. It's a really good one on Alma Coffee, local fifth generation coffee farmer from Honduras that is bringing sustainable coffee. So sustainable, fair coffee. It's a little bit more expensive when it's fair. It's just that the farmers who are growing your beans get paid, actual wages for, providing that service, especially if they're in a country that doesn't have, that we usually just kind of keep the profits here versus giving it to the farmers. So that's what fair means. So it was like fair coffee, sustainably raised, so it's with some consciousness, tastes great, this rich, robust coffee, and it's being, it's brought here to the U.S. and sold here. I'm doing a total disservice to the message plan. I haven't read it in a couple days, but so like that's really interesting. And then you go down through the strategic message planner and you go, so what's your key message to consumers? And the key message was, okay, so if it's college students, and it was really well thought through, and I would say it was, full points for accuracy, logical accuracy. But where I would challenge it from a creative is to say, like, okay, so now what do we do with this information? So you said, what's the insight into the college students? And the insight the student had was, they're broke, so they're looking for something inexpensive, convenient, because they're busy, and tastes great, right? So good taste, convenient, and so convenience was key, and price. Caution to anybody who tries to sell on price, right? So I have some of you trying to offer discounts and get people in, but no business owner wants to give away their product. And here's the thing, when you're doing that, you are kind of reducing, you're not building a brand. Let's just say it that way. So whenever you compete on price, you're the low guy. You're not the category leader. You're trying to get in, you're chipping away, you're biting at the other guy's heels. Don't position your brand that way. Don't compete on price. Now, have a good price. Be price competitive. Certainly run promotions. That's part of it. It's just not the lead idea. So you have to figure out what am I trying to dial up or dial down? And so what I was telling you about this coffee product, what you would do then as a pig pursuing truffles is you'd start to say, okay, so here's this product truth, all these great qualities about my product. Now, what's that human truth that's going to overlap with that? And I think the student had in their target audience, it's like, once they hear our ad, people are going to get it. So we're going to throw that net really wide. And the thing is, good luck with that. You won't get people in to care about. By the way, I don't know how it's less expensive if it's, once you start bringing in these other equities like, sustainable and fair. Fair means it's going to, we're willing to pay the farmer. So it's going to cost you a little bit more and you're willing to do that because you care. Now you're in a mindset of, I care. So you have to care. People, if they're especially college students who aren't able to care with their wallets, they're not your target. Your target already has that mindset and they're willing to make trade-offs. They're willing to pay a little bit more so that they could forward a cause they care about. So what else is in their psychology? There's coffee, just coffee alone. Coffee as a ritual. It's not just guzzle it down, right? So coffee is a ritual. Look, I have my coffee every day. I do, and I would start my morning without coffee. Even if I don't physically need coffee, but there's something about saying my day is starting now. I have it. And I'm going to, or if this was in a little bit of a mug, it's like that warm steam's coming off of my face. It's part of my ritual. So you want to really understand, what does that mean to, like for me, I'm being very female. Maybe female is the target. Maybe it's everybody, college. Maybe you want to start to narrow it. But when you start to get into, when you brief your creatives, you start to, they can imagine who this consumer is. And specifically, what's their psychology. So, I'm sitting here, what is my psychology? So my morning ritual, I'm starting my day, all of the things that are associated with coffee for me. So I do sort of a word association, right? Coffee is morning, it's alert, it's awake, it's rejoicing to a new day, it's possibility. My morning is full of possibility. My night's not so much. I'm spent. I'm like, whew, how much did I get off my list? Every morning I wake up, true story, I wake up with 100 ideas in my head, maybe 10 ideas. It's maybe because I'm Aquarius, but I'm kind of, what about this? What about that? What about, and I'm percolating. I'm percolating. That's an insight. I'm percolating, right? So then you go, oh, well, that's fun. So you start to talk to yourself. Think about the audience. Sometimes you are the audience. Cool. The consumer percolates with possibility in the morning. Interesting. I sell coffee, and coffee's part of her morning ritual. Interesting. I have more of a story. I'm putting a story together, but I'm putting it together based on truth. right? I'm not making it up. I'm not coming up with gimmicks. I'm getting into the mindset of the person I'm trying to sell to. And then I'm going to figure out and I started with the product in this case with coffee. This is a person who cares. What else about this person? This is a person who recycles because she cares about the planet. This is a person who really wants to hire employees and give them, minimum wage. I want to raise the minimum wage. I'm activist. I'm out there, and it's not true. I'm not. I mean, I do want that, but I'm not out doing anything because I'm so busy. But college students, right? If I was a college student, absolutely, I'd be, being an activist and being, that's young people change the freaking world, right? So that's something. You got to look at their whole target insight. When you know that about your audience, now you know how to market to your audience. Maybe you know what's going to appeal to me. You get that from research, so it's hard to wing it. It's hard to just write it down so this is where you have to be strategic. That's sort of the point of strategic writing, right? Anybody could write. Short sentences, clear, good punctuation. What do you do with that information? You mull over the data. You dig for truffles, right? You turn it into something that's going to light you up or light up an audience. Certainly in that one-page brief. It looks like you have to do the whole thing. You don't just get away with one page, but do your whole strategic message planner. But then it's that key message that I'm really looking at. So I kind of gave you some ideas. The key message on the coffee one, it's not on, first of all, that was a cold brew coffee. So if you want to continue on that track, student, Philip, it's Philip. But because it was great. I didn't know how that was going to save me time and money because cold brew, don't I have to buy the pot? And then don't I also have the extra work of having to make it? Doesn't it take like 3 days? I make cold brew coffee sometimes because it's so expensive to buy. It's like $7 for a jar of cold brew, right? It's concentrated coffee, but it's super smooth. But there's something wonderful about super smooth, right? Okay. But my point with that, I forget. Oh, it was kind of your selling proposition, your unique selling proposition. You remember that from the video you saw? That single-minded idea, that key message, the core benefit, those are all the same things, by the way. It didn't add up. So if I care about quick, cheap, good, I'm going to go to McDonald's. So is that who the Honduras coffee is about? I don't think so. I think you want to get into the psychology of that consumer. Okay, so you want to get so it's about, this is for it's the coffee for, that could be a line. It's the coffee for the blanks of the world, you see this a lot with beer. I'm trying to come up with an example. It's for the go-getters. Go get them. And you start to play with ideas. Don't write the tagline, but your strategic message could be kind of close to the tagline. So how would I do it in vitamins? Since I just talked about the vitamin one, glad you took your vitamins was the creative that came out of it. So the strategic message would have been, you'll feel so great. Knowing that you are doing everything you can to keep yourself healthy. It's bad. It's bad, but it's we call it the bad ad because it's the idea. It's a placeholder. Like, who cares? It says something, and we'll noodle with it. We'll perfect the words later. Get the idea. What did I say? So it's you'll feel good knowing that you're doing everything to keep your body healthy. That's an idea. So what are the things that make me feel good knowing I'm doing everything to keep my body healthy? Taking vitamins. I'm exercising. I'm eating right. I'm blah, 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 right? So now the creatives go, okay, it's a big enough idea that you'll feel good knowing you're doing everything to keep it. I could probably find the actual thing I wrote to them. But they were like, yeah, you'll feel good. Well, that happens after you've done it. You've done the behavior. So they went into that after space, which is great. Creatives figured it out. I didn't tell them to do that. I didn't tell them, show me doing yoga, literally. Like I said, this is a woman who feels really good knowing that she's empowering. She's taken on, actions in her life that every day, she's doing, 5 right actions to stay healthy. And they are exercise, and vitamins. And I brief the creatives and they go off and they create. And all the campaigns that come back to me from that, they all look different, but they're in that same strategic territory of, of all of that kind of different behaviors. Ours was a little bit more, that campaign that I was in was a little bit more, it had a certain tone to it, right? Here's a lovely lady doing that. Some of our other teams came back with like crazy stuff that was funny. It was like really funny, like people like mangling themselves, falling down, they're skiing, I remember, and falling down and getting up. And there's a part you go, hey, if it's on strategy, I don't test it. That's my job. Test it. I laugh. My job is to laugh when it's funny or not. 2, my job is to celebrate the creative idea as long as it's on strategy. Not improve the creative idea. No. Oh, if you want to lose your job fast, try to improve creatives. Keep them on course. Celebrate ideas. Ideas need to be incubated. Come take me for advertising. I'll talk to you all about incubating the chick, right? They're very precious, gentle little things in the early stages. And, as we nurture them, and before we can let them off into culture, we test it. And sometimes the test will be too crude, and it's my job to make sure it goes through the right test so that the little chick can live, and we'll see if we can nurture it to something where it grows, flies away. Anyway, that's what's coming. So I hope to just have keep putting the purpose on this thing, right? Have you guys be thinking about, you're not just writing for writing's sake. It comes together into ideas that take form in the world. It'll take form in a campaign, and the campaign that you're going to be working on for your final presentation is going to be a client with the real business needs that you're going to solve for in your strategic message brief with a single-minded idea. You're going to come up with a campaign. A campaign means all the things that are on message. So specifically, you're coming up with print, radio script that's going to drive you to the website, a radio ad, and or a television commercial. And then you're going to actually produce that commercial or the radio ad. Okay, so that's just for more fun. And then you present, and that'll be a wrap. So that's what we're moving towards. Start thinking now that assignment is already live. I assigned it on the 6th. Brief memo to the professor stating your partner and product. I said you could partner up with each other if you wanted to. If you want to, if you know anybody, I don't know if you guys are working together. Sure. That's, I don't care. I'll look at but then you both get the same grade, right? Because why do I let partners? Because that's how we do it in the world. I don't have to come up with my ideas on my own. I kick them around. I have people build on it. I have people tear it down. And that's how I ideate. That's how it works. Right? So if you have, look at creative director and an art director, they work with each other. They're kicking ideas around. They're Post-it notes all over the room. That's how it's done. So anyway, so you can do that or not. On the 5th is your final day to submit your strategic message planner. That's November 5th. Integrated advertising project is due on the 19th, and then you do a quick presentation, and then we're done. So get the wheels turning on that. Get caught up with all of the writing assignments we've had thus far. Any of these writing assignments, you guys, could have been used in the campaign. Like I said, if you're already not changing your client, you already know what you're doing, use it. That's okay. I'll grade it in that context too. Double duty. But if I give you a note on it and you didn't take that note, I might grade it a little more harshly on the second go. Okay? So, not because I'm a jerk, but because I want you to make sure that you're actually, doing the work and getting the point of improving. All right, how do I end this thing? How about just that? All right, keep up. Let me know if you have any questions.